In this video, we are going to show you all the ways in which you may use a wok to cook food. This is an induction unit. You can use any kind you want for the purposes of how we're gonna teach you how to use this wok. This is a basic carbon steel wok. This one happened to come with this when I bought it, but this is like any kind of Mandarin style wok that you'd find at an Asian grocery store. I don't really believe so much in brand names when it comes to woks. They all work pretty similarly and they all work really well. More important than the brand name is the type of metal that you buy your woks. Non-stick woks are not recommended because of the the high heat point that you're supposed to use woks at. I think non-stick coatings are rated at 500 degrees and woks can go easily over that. This unit itself goes up to 500 degrees and then it goes beyond that when you're actually trying to sear and stir fry. So do not buy non-stick woks of any kind. Stainless steel woks are very specialized. They are not conducive to stir frying because the beauty behind stainless steel is that things tend to stick to it, which allows them to get a really good char. And to get stainless steel to be non-stick, it has to be consistently and constantly very, very hot, which the temperature variations of the wok is also one of its features. So stainless steel, I would say if you have a stainless steel wok, don't throw it away. They happen to be good for one of the cooking methods that you use a wok for, which is steaming. Stainless steel woks are amazing for steaming. That leaves us with two different types of materials, cast iron and carbon steel. I've only seen one kind of cast iron wok and they're made by Lodge. I have one myself and it is fantastic. It is way too heavy to do stir frying motions with, but because cast iron does such a good job in retaining heat, it makes a really good deep fryer. So if you have one of those, definitely keep it as well. Carbon steel is by far the best metal, in my opinion, to use for a wok. It is light, it is nimble, it is durable. It can get as non-stick as cast iron with a good seasoning, and it is highly, highly durable. You can use metal utensils on this. I've been getting a lot of comments from people who like freak out because I use metal utensils on a carbon steel wok. Yes, you can use metal utensils on a carbon steel wok. They do that at restaurants all the time. The only time you should only be using metal utensils on woks is if they are non-stick, and you shouldn't be buying those anyway. So I don't know who's been lying to y'all, but somebody did, and they are not to be trusted. So today we're going to show you all the ways that you can use a wok to cook food, and we're gonna do that with this chicken, as well as some eggs. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to break down this chicken and all of the different parts I will cook in a different way that you can cook in a wok. And then also I will make wok scrambled eggs because my crew is hungry and they have not had breakfast yet. Let's start with the eggs. If you're just learning how to use a wok, eggs are some of the best things that you can cook if you're trying to learn how to use a wok, especially if you're coming from like using other pans. The reason being is because they will show you relatively quickly where the heat is and how things work and how the heat is distributed within the pan. So we're gonna make some wok scrambled eggs. I like mine really runny. So we'll just break a few eggs. No, I didn't do that, there we go. Just a little bit of salt. Maybe if you're feeling it, just a touch of chicken powder, and then you just give it a stir. I just got this on me, okay. So the first thing we're gonna do is pre-season our wok. You do this before every use, no matter how well seasoned your wok is. Just a little bit of oil at first. Get a nice even distribution on there. My wok was used pretty recently, so it's gonna be really nice and shiny. And you should know this already if you watch the fried rice video. And once it starts to smoke a little bit, then this can be like wiped off or discarded, and then you start again with fresh oil. I didn't use that much in this, so instead of dumping it out, I'm just going to use a paper towel to like rub it all in. And this gets you like a primary coating of oil that does a really good job in making the whole thing non-stick. You can't do this with a wok that is unseasoned. That's like, it's just not gonna be enough. But if your wok is already well seasoned, then this adds like that super non-stick layer to it. That makes it so that you can like melt cheese, cook eggs without any problem. The white smoke tells you that it's pretty much ready. And now you start with a fresh thing of oil. If you got an induction wok, just set it to 400 degrees. Allow it to smoke a little bit. There you go. And just a little bit inside. And for wok scrambled eggs, all you have to do is let the bottom of the egg layer cook, push it, let that layer cook, push it again. I can set this to higher. I'm a little impatient, so I'm gonna set it to 450 and just do this more often. And you just keep cooking, you just keep pushing it. Making all these folds gives it a beautiful texture, and it gives like the undercooked egg portion kind of like a place to hide and makes it super, super good with rice. And you just keep going until most of the egg has cooked off. And this is actually a pretty good test of how well you seasoned your pan, because by the end of it, like even like the best pans need to be seasoned a little bit after that. So you can see like how well that the non-stick surface works. And none of it is using any Teflon. It is simply just cooked in oil. This also highlights another way that the wok is like really special compared to other pans. The side of the wok is not hot. It's only the center that is really, really hot and does all of the cooking. So by pushing things off to the side, you're not overcooking the egg that's up here, but you're doing a really good job of cooking the egg that is actually touching the bottom of the pan. And you see by the end of it, we're already done. And that is it. You put this over some rice, and it's gonna be delicious. Scallions, a little bit of pepper, and always a couple of drops of dark soy sauce, because dark soy sauce and eggs are so good. And that is a wok scrambled egg with scallions and dark soy sauce. And that was the first thing that we cooked with a wok. First thing we're gonna do is we're going to break down this chicken into parts. Nothing fancy, just breasts, thighs, legs, and wings. And then by the end of it, we'll also have a back that I will use for stock later. So here we go. And there we have the chicken. Maybe I will separate the drums as well. Hold on. There you go. Okay. 2 breasts, 2 wings, 2 drums, and 2 thighs, and a back. We're gonna stir fry one breast. We're gonna steam the other breast as well as a thigh and eat that with ginger scallion oil. We're going to fry the wings and the thighs, and we're gonna braise the drumsticks. So we are just going to do a basic chicken breast stir fry. We're gonna velvet our chicken, which means we're gonna hit it with a little bit of baking soda and cornstarch while it marinades, and that will tenderize the meat so that it'll be nice and tender when we stir fry it. And then we're just gonna cook it in with some mushrooms and some ginger and garlic. This is not really a recipe video. This is more as a showcase of all the things you can do with a wok. So let's get started with this. I guess it's not so bad if I do it in like large batches. It's still not a complete waste of time. Ugh. Ugh. I didn't drop anything good. It was just garlic, sorry. We'll keep the skin on for this. This was a big chicken. So basically cutting the chicken into strips and then smaller bite-sized pieces, whatever that means to you. A little bit of light soy sauce, cooking wine, or Chinese Shaoxing wine. So my videos aren't sponsored, I'm gonna sponsor myself. Smoldering Embers blend. This is kind of like a smoky, cumin-y blend that's really good for all sorts of meat. But you could also use garlic powder and cumin. And if you wanted to buy this, you can go to Burlap and Barrel and buy them. And mochi is on the bottle, so what's not to love? Half a teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. And once again, we get our hands dirty, we mix. Anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes. That'll get in there nicely. If I did that strategically, I would do this before doing the ginger and the garlic, and that would have been more efficient. So I recommend you do that. There. Prepping the mushrooms is really easy. All we're going to do is just peel them. These were very obviously grown in a like greenhouse or a mushroom growing thing, so there's no real dirt on them. It's fine, they're getting all cooked together anyway. So you just cut off the base and then you just have them all separate into like little nice stalks so that they're like, so I retain their shape and they just look nicer. But yeah, if your mushrooms were not like grown in, they were grown in like controlled conditions, you can tell like this and you just like knob this off and it'll be okay. When cooking with mushrooms, especially in a case of a stir fry, you want to do these first, and you don't want to do them with any oil whatsoever. Mushrooms need to have some of their moisture to be like released, and they don't actually burn. Well, they don't burn very easily compared to vegetables and meat. So, or I should say compared to other plants and meat. Not other plants. Mushrooms are not a plant. Compared to plants and meat, mushrooms do not burn easily. So we're going to just give them a head start in the wok. 400 degrees, no, 450 degrees. So mushrooms will go in first, and then we're going to add a little bit of oil after the fact, once they have released a lot of their water. And then to that, we will add in the ginger and the garlic and then the chicken. It's gonna be a little bit less intuitive than you would think, but when you're cooking with mushrooms, that's just how you're supposed to do it. Not supposed to. I think it's the best way to do it. We've got a little bit of smoke in here, and there we go. So you can see the mushrooms are starting to develop a little bit of a char. I'm bringing it down to 415 degrees. They will start squeaking. It's actually a good thing when they start squeaking, so. And so basically you just keep pushing it through the center portion. As we said when we were cooking the egg, the middle is hot and the sides are cool, so to stop them from like cooking unevenly, you just keep them moving, and that will make sure all of them are starting to go. You can see now that the mushrooms are starting to get a little bit shiny. They're starting to release some of that moisture out there. It's starting to smell really good, but you're also getting like a nice little hint of char on the mushrooms themselves, and that is also like, that's a lot of flavor in there as well. So this is my favorite way to stir fry mushrooms. They're starting to reduce, they're starting to darken, they're starting to like focus all of that flavor into themselves. And at this point is when you like start or even consider putting in the oil to cook everything else. You can leave the mushrooms in here. They will not overcook as long as you keep it moving. And I think if you do leave it in here, it does a better job of like mixing in their flavor with whatever you're cooking them with. So next is some peanut oil. Neutral oil with some ginger and some garlic. More of both. There we go. Now that the ginger and the garlic has nicely incorporated itself, we can add some of this chicken. So it doesn't matter whether you're cooking on induction or if you're cooking on a regular gas stove at home, you're never going to get wok hei, or what is known as wok hei, which is like the breath of the wok or that torchy flavor, just by using this unit or just by using a gas range. This comes pretty close on its own. You can see like that nice little char that's starting to develop on everything. But if you are going to do it, instead of trying to get a flame or having a high BTU thing, the best way to do it is to use a blowtorch. So, and specifically, I do enjoy this type of blowtorch. So keeping it on, you keep it locked in, you kind of like just adding it to the wok. It will develop a lot of smoke. And you kind of just stir them in and around. And that's how you can get wok hei at home, at least closer to that than you would like without it. And now that the chicken has been cooked, you just give it a little hit of light soy sauce at the end and some more cooking wine. And there you have a chicken and mushroom stir fry using the stir fried method in a wok, the most famous thing a wok is good for. You will notice that I only cooked half of this thing with the chicken breast. First of all, that was a enormous chicken breast for one chicken. I will cook the rest of this up, but it is important to note that even though a wok is a really large pan, the cooking surface of the area is very, very small, smaller than probably even the smallest regular frying pans that you have. So, and because of the motion that is very like consistent motion of pushing the food past this super hot surface, you can't really cook a lot of food in there. Like you saw me with the mushrooms and stuff, but those were already cooked. And mushrooms are a special case because you can just leave them in there and they won't overcook. When you cook anything in stir fries, cook them in batches, and then take them out, cook another batch, and then put them in. And then if you want at the end, you can put them in together and like have them heat up and meld together. The blowtorch thing. This is the closest thing that you'll get to having wok hei at home. Restaurants have their thing at like an insane amount of BTUs. I think it's like 16,000 BTUs is the most you can get at home. Let me check that. That could be all. Hold on. Okay, so 18,000 BTUs for a home range, 150,000 BTUs for a wok range to get proper wok hei. And not only that, wok burners focus it all into a small part of the wok itself. So all of that power is going into a small portion. Meanwhile, 18,000 is usually spread out in a large broad flame. So you're not getting anywhere near what you got with a home gas burner. The induction burner actually comes closer because it does a better job in focusing a large amount of energy into a small portion of the wok. So the sear is better than you would using a wok on a gas range at home, but you're still not getting that char. So that's where this comes in. Using this in combination with an induction stove is probably the closest that you're going to get because this focuses a direct flame onto the food so that you can get that wok hei that you would be missing at a restaurant. Also, that is a lot of work to get one thing done. Just go to a restaurant if you like care about wok hei that much. I would anyway. Like this is, I have this already and I would still rather go to a restaurant. But let's go and try some more unconventional things to use a wok to cook with. Woks are amazing when it comes to steaming food because of its shape. It doesn't really matter how big or how small your steaming basket is, because of the wok's like conical shape, it can accommodate a lot of different size baskets. And because of that shape, anytime the water from the basket comes up and condenses back down, it doesn't drip on the outside of the pan, which happens a lot when you're using like a steaming basket that's too small with a too small like saucepan or something. It always goes back into the wok, which makes it less likely that you're gonna burn anything. Steamed chicken is one of those dishes where it is very mild on its own. You might season it with a minimal amount of white pepper, salt, maybe a tiny bit of sand ginger at first, and then you steam the chicken, but it's what you eat the chicken with. You might eat it with a sweet spice soy sauce, you might eat it with fermented chopped chilies, you might eat it with ginger scallion oil. The chicken pretty much acts as a canvas for all of these sauces that you would consume it with. And then ultimately you just mix them all together and eat it with the chicken. It's really delicious. There are a few dishes that like use this method. Hainan chicken rice is the most famous version of this. I was trying to think of if I had anything else to say about this, but I don't, so let's just do it. A little bit of salt. A little bit of white pepper. White pepper. and ginger. All right, so here's the plate. I'm gonna do this. And chicken in there. And you can see what I mean about the shape of this thing being able to accommodate any type of size. As long as it's not bigger than the wok, it'll be perfectly suited to fit right in here. Which is actually like really difficult to find a pan that can accommodate all the different types of baskets you might have. These are different sizes, but they will all fit in here. It's a lot easier to just have one wok that accommodates different size steaming baskets than it is to find any one of those pans up there to find like a good match. Although like, I feel like I'm the only person or one of the few people that would have this many steaming baskets, but people just should have them, so. The temperature range of steaming is actually the exact temperature of boiling. It's 200 and something degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius, and that's the only thing I know for Celsius, is like it's 100 degrees Celsius to boil water. So that's a temperature of what's inside the basket right now. The difference between like just boiling and steaming itself is that boiling is it's a very violent way of cooking. It moves things around, the bubbles emulsify things, it mixes things up a lot. So even though it is just as hot as boiling as it would be to boil the chicken, because the steam is so gentle in the motions and how it gets into the meat, it's a much gentler way of cooking it. And also, it's a lot more nutritious too, because water leaches nutrients from whatever it is you're cooking, which is fine if you're making soup, but if you're, say, like boiling vegetables and stuff, a lot of the vitamins in your vegetables leach out into the water that is discarded. If you're steaming something, there is really nowhere for those nutrients to go. They stay in your food, which is why in a lot of cases, steaming is not just like one of the most gentle ways of cooking things, it's also one of the healthiest ways of cooking things. Refilling your steamer setup is really easy. All you have to do is, once you think that the water is running a little bit low, is just pouring it down the side of the wok, and that's it. At around 10 or 15 minutes, your chicken should be cooked. So you just turn this off. There are multiple little tools that you can use to grab things with, because this will be very hot. So these things specifically are used to grab the baskets while it's hot. Just put that in here. Also takes the lid off very nicely. There we go. And then these are used to grab the individual plates themselves, because the plates are really hot. So multiple variations of like different grabby things. All of that juice that is on the bottom is a mix of the water and chicken essence and a little bit of the chicken fat schmaltz. If you were making Hainan chicken rice, you would be using the entire chicken. So there would be a lot of this stuff. And this would pretty much all fall into like the bottom of the wok, because you wouldn't be really doing it on plates. Like this would turn into like the tastiest, most delicious chicken broth that you would ever have. And when you're making Hainan chicken rice, you use this broth to make the rice. So you have a super chickeny rice with a side of super chickeny soup and a side of really delicious and mild chicken to eat with a whole bunch of sauces. This is a ginger scallion oil made by the XCJ. I like it because they are the only company that I know that makes ginger scallion oil that you can buy. I can make it myself, but this is so nice. This is just so nice to always have in your house. So we'll just take this chicken piece out. And now that it's steamed, you just cut them into chopstick bites. This is a messier part. You put them back in. There we go. Now, there is, people always freak out when they see this. There is some red in this, and that is from the myoglobin in the bones. It is still a fully cooked chicken, but because, again, it is such a delicate cooking process, you might get some red inside the bones. That's not blood. and it's not dangerous. But if you wanted to get rid of that, you would simply cook it for a long, long time. Unfortunately, you run the risk of, at that point, like overcooking the chicken itself. So it depends on like what your value is. Like if you don't mind seeing a little bit of red, if you're cooking this for yourself and you know better, it's okay. But if you're cooking it for other people who might like, you know, be really weirded out by that, especially when it comes to dark meat. This happens a lot more in dark meat than with light meat, because with light meat, you don't have any bones in there. You might want to take that into consideration. So it is cooked between like up to 15 minutes, but it won't have any red in the bones if you leave it for 25 minutes. But by that time, like, your chicken's gonna be a little dry. And some salt. Braising things in a wok is pretty spectacular, especially when you're talking about very specialized dishes like hongsha ru. My Mandarin is, I don't know what I just said. I think I just said red braised pork, but I might not have. But red braised pork is the most famous braised dish that is made usually in a wok. So what you do is, with a bunch of spices and stuff, you start off with the rock sugar actually. And you kind of cook the sugar in there with some soy sauce, with some dark soy sauce, until it becomes this like vibrant like soy sauce caramel. And then you add in your pork, which you had seared before, and you just let that cook in there for a really long time. And then it becomes this like deep amber color, and it's sweet and it's fatty and it's rich and it's absolutely delicious. We're not doing that today because I said that I will be using a whole chicken to make this stuff, and I only bought one chicken to make this stuff. So we're going to just do a master stock braise. I've made the master stock with y'all already, so maybe some of you have it. Hopefully some of you guys have it, and that is what we'll do. So with a braise, you have to sear your meat first, so that is what we're gonna do. We are going to braise the drumsticks of the chicken. A little bit of oil. So once you got the sear on your chicken, you just add in your master stock and cover, and that is it. With the pork belly, I would go for like an hour, but that's pork belly. I've never actually done this with drumsticks before, but drumsticks, I have 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. Everything's 30, 45 minutes if you don't know what you're doing. And there you've got master stock braised drums. When you're doing this, obviously you're searing on the high heat, but you do want to turn this on to like a low, medium, low for your wok so that it does bubble and poach, but it doesn't boil over, because if it does, you run the risk of reducing your braising liquid too much, and that becomes over concentrated, that becomes over salty, and at the worst case scenarios, you ruin your liquid and burn everything. So it is something that you have to pay more attention to, but you know, keep a lid on it, making sure that it doesn't lose too much moisture, and keep the temperature at a low point. You have a great vessel for making braised pork belly, braised chicken legs, braised chicken wings, braised anything. The last thing we're gonna do is deep frying, which is probably my favorite alternative method of using a wok, for a bunch of reasons. First of all, compared to this has a lot more surface area, meaning that you have a lot more opportunity to cook more things. And if you crowd everything onto the bottom, then whatever's at the bottom will overcook, and whatever's at the top won't cook fast enough, and it's hard to keep track. So this way, you have a better opportunity to fry more things evenly. Also, because of this rounded shape, it uses less oil. If I were to compare it to, say, something like this or a Dutch oven, for the amount of oil compared to the relative surface area that you get, this uses much less oil, which means you save a lot more money. And finally, because this is carbon steel, this pan will love you for deep frying things in it. The oil has a longer period of time to get into the pores of the wok. Because of the constant heat, it cooks into the wok itself. So not only are you making delicious food, but you are seasoning your pan at the same time. Once you take the oil out, take it out to reuse or something like that, you'll notice that the seasoning of your cast iron or carbon steel is your pan is basically just super, super happy with you. So with that being said, we are going to cook some wings in this, and I never have an ending sentence. I noticed that. I always ended my shit with and yeah, okay, let's just do it. Just a little note on frying oil. Frying oil can be used more than just once. If you keep it in an airtight container, it could last you quite a while depending on how much you deep fry things. Having a stainless steel container of oil makes it so that frying things just isn't as expensive of an endeavor. This particular thing, I don't even know what, this says Augie, and I don't know who Augie is, but this brand is Augie. I just bought this off of Amazon. It comes with a strainer, which is great because you can strain out solids. If you want to get really serious about it, they make paper cones that allow you to really filter out the oil. That will get you maybe 5-6 uses out of the oil while just replenishing it a little bit at a time. If you like deep frying things, and now that you can deep fry things more, now that you found out how easy it is to do with a wok, I would get one of these. I would not use glass. I would not use plastic. Plastic for obvious reasons. It gets so hot that you would probably be melting that plastic and making a mess on your floor or leaching that into your oil. And glass would surely explode if you do it while hot. Being able to pour oil into this and being able to pour it into a paper cone or a coffee filter while it was still hot makes it a lot easier to filter out. So steel is probably the only thing I would use for that purpose. And while that is enough oil to cook 2 chicken wings, I'm just gonna do more because this container is so big, just to show the surface area of it all. It only was up to here to fill it. I probably now have half of this container in that much oil. So we'll just turn this up 400 degrees, well, 385. We'll have to wait for the oil to come up to temperature, so we'll just cover it, give it a little bit of a head start, and once it's heated up, we'll fry some chicken. Okay, so I have a wet batter here, some seasoned wet batter, white pepper, salt, and potato starch, and some dry dredge here. Why didn't I talk you guys through these instructions? Because if I do a fried chicken video, that will be a whole separate video that you guys should have to watch, because that is worth its own video. All right, we're at around 350 degrees in the oil now, I think. We're still good. We're still good. We're at 400, so it'll cool down once I put something in here. So what I'm gonna do is your quick wet, dry fry, and then we'll do a double fry because that is the best way to fry chicken very easily. And we'll do the whole wing. So what we'll start is, this is potato starch, white pepper, salt, and water. And this will be in place of our egg. This is just straight up potato starch and salt. And we'll get a good coverage here. Of course, it's gonna be so messy. My favorite. And once we got good coverage at this point, we just drop it in and fry. I always make such a mess when I deep fry chicken. Breasts. So this is the preliminary fry done. We're just gonna bring it out. And normally, like, I would bring this out, then like put something else in to fry. Actually, I will do just that. So I'll bring this out. Give this a chance to like dry out a bit before putting it back in. And what that will do is it will get the chicken like resiliently crispy. And now we'll double fry the part that we just came out, just so everything gets super crispy. I think that was one I put in. There we go. I lost track of which ones. Oh, there we go. Second fry is much shorter than the first one. Basically, we're just kind of trying to get like the residual moisture out so that everything just like stays crunchy for a little longer. Potato starch fries at a much lighter color than like say wheat starch does. So you don't really get like that golden color as easily as you would with like a regular flour. But the trade-off is that it's crispier, and when it's salted and fried, it's kind of like, it has like the flavor of potato chips. Plus you can make it red with chili oil anyway. Okay, let's see how crunchy this is. Oh god. That's also very hot, but my mouth is watering. It's really good. And this is what your wok looks like after deep frying it. I just rinsed it off, and just look how beautiful it is. It looks like space. Like, it's amazing. So there you have it. I cooked all of this using one chicken and one wok. I think people really do a disservice in assuming that stir frying is the only thing you can do with a wok. That is totally untrue. It is such a good vessel for steaming, braising, deep frying. My personal favorite, because like, look at how like happy she is after deep frying that chicken. And as I said before, brand name is a lot less important than material. I love a carbon steel wok, but your priorities might be different. Carbon steel is something you do have to season, otherwise it will rust. The more you use it, the happier it be, the better it will treat you. But as you can see, there are just so many different ways that you can use it. So that's all for me. Be sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you decide to do with your wok.